chatting, it's actually a lot more fun. But from research, well, top companies actually that have women in them are actually better performing. That's what I go through. They're actually higher performing teams, and from all the research that we've done, and I will keep referring to research because I'm no expert in this particular matter, but what I have done is a lot of reading and pulled together a lot of insights to be able to present this to you. But what we've come up with is that women typically talk more, they network more, they're a lot more open with their feelings and emotions, and when you put that into a team context, what that means is more ideas are typically bouncing around. You have more conversations about problems. You share your thoughts on perhaps more creative solutions. And what this means is that the actual team itself becomes more creative. And there's some really great readings out there which I can share with you later on about this exact topic. The second thing is that this figure of 65% is actually in Australia. In the US, it's actually higher. It's more like 80%. But basically, women actually control a lot of have control over spending in terms of a family unit. So when families are out buying a washing machine or a car or a house, whatever it might be, usually large purchases, there's a lot more influence from the female than the male. And why we think it's good to have diverse teams is, well, if you've got a team of all males trying to build a solution to market to what's predominantly a female market, then that doesn't really work. And a good example of this, so some colleagues of mine are working out at Bauer, and they've just released this thing called part of the Women's Network, so they do like Australian Women's Day and so forth. And Dan Lavolsi, one of the BAs there, said to me, oh, what better people to try and build a solution to market to women than a whole bunch of men. And it was literally a team of 10 men trying to go, oh, I wonder what women might actually, how they feel about it. Obviously they talk to youth and so forth, but John Sullivan says a really good thing that the product that a team makes is a real reflection of the team itself. And that's the reason why we should actually have more diverse teams. So is there a shortage? Well, yes, there is. So a couple of different stats in there, which I'll animate this slide. So in 2001 to 2013, the actual number of IT students has dropped by half. And this has come from Department of Education research last year. Some other staggering facts is that it used to actually be 25%, now it's 1 in 5, which you've seen recently. And IT, in terms of the courses being run, has dropped from 9% to 4%. So it's actually going down, which is a little bit scary. So yes, there is a shortage of the number of students coming through. Another reason for the shortage, and I've got probably a handful of slides in here about shortage. I feel this is really good to understand the context. So, like people are saying, gender diversity and women tech is so important. That's all great, but there actually are real reasons about why this is the case, not just one. So another one is less women in the workforce. So research shows that as primary caregivers, that for every one male, there's actually 2 females. So it's an actual fact that women are predominantly caregivers more often than not. And what this means is there's less women in the workforce to actually take on some of these technical roles. A couple of reasons for that. So few companies actually explicitly help women to return to work. So I know there's a lot going around now that HR policies and so forth, if people are trying to change them a bit more to help introduce women back, and I think that's fantastic. But more often than not, as a general rule, they're just not there to explicitly help them return to work. And the third one on this slide is about hiring individuals for skills. So this is quite interesting because you think about, in the context of a woman perhaps going on maternity leave, they could be on leave for 12 to 18 months. You think about the technology scene and how so much changes in that time. So if you're asking for an ad saying, you need to have all these, all the top, the new technologies in there, it's very, very often than not that woman will actually get to tick those boxes because they've been looking after a child for 12 months. Some other things are career changes. So I'll quickly touch on my career. So 12 years ago, finished Bachelor of Computer Science. I was one of 2 or 3 of a few hundred students that were female. Then went on to a consulting company where I was a software engineer for a few years. I have some ex-colleagues here. And look, I really enjoyed it, and I wanted to be an engineer because I wanted to build things. But I was in that scenario as well, only 2 of a few hundred employees, and I didn't really feel right and fit right in that organisation, I didn't think, or in that industry. And that's what I felt at the time. Looking back, I was just so stupid, like I wish I could just, smack myself on the head and say, wake up, because that wasn't actually the case. But I'll talk a little bit of reasons about why that's possibly the case. So anyway, from there I went on to technology recruitment, so I could still use technical skills for what I was doing. Went off into L'Oreal Fashion Land for a little while, and then came all the way back into tech as a technical business analyst, and have grown that career ever since. And I just think, I'm really thankful that I've come all the way back, because tech is such an amazing career to be part of, and so I'm very, very thankful for that. It does not happen for everyone, and a lot of females I've spoken to either drop out for either family reasons, or they just don't really feel like they fit right in the industry. So I want to talk to a few things that can help with that. Bossy syndrome is a really interesting one. So has anyone read the Lean In book by Sheryl Sandberg? Yeah, fantastic, yeah. So she describes this much better than I'm going to now, but bossy syndrome is all about when a young girl, as she grows up, she's told that when she, and this is all from research again, she's told that from a young age, being assertive and being loud, outspoken and leading is actually not a nice characteristic to have. So if you think about a mother or a father perhaps saying to a little girl, we've got a little poppy up there as well, saying, little girl, don't do that, don't be so bossy. So that's I guess a characteristic in that little girl that when they grow up, it builds and builds and builds. And it's really hard to say, but girls in the room, have you felt like you've had this bossy syndrome a few times? Yes, okay, there's sort of some shy yeses. But, and what this means is, so maybe a few years ago I would have sat in a meeting and said, sorry, not said anything, but if I'd been asked something, I probably would have said, oh yeah, I'm in agreement with that, yeah, sorry, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. And a lot of women tend to do this because of that fear of bossy syndrome, so it actually lives all the way through their career. On the flip side, men typically are told to lead, like, Shane, get up there, show them who's boss, and you get up there and lead, and that's from a very young age. Go and climb that tree and go and master that jungle course, and that's, throughout the career, that's a huge part. Yes, sure, yeah. That's a huge part of building that character that then shows through later on in the career. So, again, I'll talk to some things that I've picked up along the way that can help with that. Pervasiveness of technology is an interesting one, and this is really similar to Agile, but you think of when you try to describe what IT or what tech is, and it's so broad. You can look at tech from so many different angles, and you've got all the way through from user experience now, and designers and artists even, to data scientists, to engineers, network engineers, hardware engineers, all these different types of roles. It's really hard to actually paint the whole picture. And that's why it's hard to describe, especially when you've got career advisors trying to encourage students or even younger than that to actually join a career in tech. So through conversations, through with the Career Education Advisory of Victoria, they've actually flat out said to us, it's really hard for us to actually recommend tech as a career because we don't totally understand it. And it's because it's so pervasive and so difficult to actually describe. So what can we do? So split this up into 2 areas. The first bit is around sort of smaller tactical things that you can do in your organisation, and the second bit is around more sort of community-focused things that we can all be doing more broadly. So when I give this talk, most people usually take this bit away, and I think it's cool, it's important, but the second bit that I'm going to go through is even more important, so I hope you do pick up on that. So the first one is culture. So the types of companies that I've spoken to, so a lady called Asia Nozek from Australia Post, I've had a really good deep chat to her, and she's a huge advocate for gender diversity. Her very first thing that she said was she went in there and absolutely changed the culture. So she didn't go in and say, I want to have more women in my team. She just went from top to bottom to top, and told everyone and spread the word, went out to HR and connected all the different business units, because she said that was the absolute first thing she had to do. And she's gone from having, I think it was like 6 or 7% of her team of 300 through to 35% over 3 years. And that's just been through building up that culture and supporting it. The second one is unpacking bossy syndrome. So I described it before, and now that you're aware that that's a thing, is to actually embrace it and help support people who might be going through this. So it's not just women in this case, this could be actually introverts that are within your team. So in meetings, or if you're trying to make decisions and whatnot, just facilitate that session so you're hearing from all those different people. So if there's a graduate, like my position when I was a grad, maybe a female grad as well, and you think, oh, she's that one female, young female in a group of 10, make sure you're completely inclusive and not, what's that word, not, I can't think of the word I was going to say, but yeah, you kind of want to include them all and make sure you're getting everyone's opinions, because that's what you're going to get from a high-performing team once you get all that humming. Another area is keeping talent. So has anyone heard of WGA? Yeah. Okay, so this is quite interesting. There's a PDF online that you can go and download and have a look at, but it's an entire program basically you can apply for. I'm definitely not advocating to go out there and get on board, but that PDF will actually give you some really good hints and tips of what types of things you can do within your organisation to achieve equality. So some initiatives are in there that you can have a look at. REA, as a member, so we all know REAs, there's a few REAs in the room, and they're a member of WGA. They have a couple of great initiatives. So one of them is a program where they have female executives that are actually going to go through motherhood. And what they do is they actually provide an external lead or mentor to actually support them prior and then after. And they've gone through 3 different trials for that, and it's gone really well. Another one is Coles down in Toronto Road in Melbourne, and they've introduced what's called an express room. So mothers coming back to work, there's actually a room where they can go and express, so they're not sitting in the toilets trying to express. So there's a bunch of other things. ANZ do a thing called W Drive, REA have Lollapalooza. There's a lot of different things that you can try and introduce to really help increase the sort of culture of gender diversity at your organisation. Connect people to cause. I don't have direct research on this, but I actually think there's something in this. So you would have seen one of the logos at the start, Rainbow Hats of Kindness, which I'm involved with in Sydney, and I'm also on the steering committee for them. And the last hackathon we had, actually to give context of what ROC is, you've got change makers from the community or individuals who want to make a difference. They could be from not-for-profits or from social enterprises or even individuals. And what we do is we actually pair them up with hackers, so they hack away and try and create solutions for those community problems. Anyway, we had a hackathon in June, and I checked the stats, and it was actually a 50-50 split of hackers between men and women. And I thought that was really interesting because that's a huge increase from what it is out in the industry. So perhaps there's something in there about connecting females to causes to actually help attract them. So measure and learn. We're all agilists and learners. So this is Tracy Chu. I can never pronounce her name right, but she's ex-Pinterest, she's ex-Facebook, Google, one of the founders of Quora, and she's only in her mid-20s. She's doing some, that's a Vogue shoot, by the way. She doesn't look like that all the time. But she, mid-20s, it's unbelievable, but she is doing some great things in encouraging organisations to actually raise awareness of this issue. So she's being a good engineer, she's gone out and created a GitHub repo, and she's got all her contents in there about gender diversity, which includes a Google Doc. What this Google Doc is exposed to anyone and everyone who would like to be included. And what it does is that on the left you've got, to column D, number of female engineers in your team, total number of engineers and the percentage. So she's really trying to encourage organisations to show what the stats are. I've used this as a really cheeky way to go in and go, who's doing it well? So there's a couple in there, some really high numbers. What types of things are they doing in their organisation to actually help with those numbers? Because they've probably got some great performing teams in there.
Well, did she do the I am an engineer?
That wasn't her, no. I've got a slide for that actually. So yeah, check it out. But yeah, if you find her on Twitter, Twitter was there. She's doing great things. So a couple of other tactics around this, This is from an organisation called Backbox, which is actually one of the ones that have the really high numbers, is to look at the types of language and channels where you're actually advertising your ads for engineers. John usually does this slide and he tells a great story about how with MYOB it actually tested this out. So typically MYOB might have a normal position description saying you need a bit of Java and you need a bit of Angular and then whatever it is that they need. You must have 5 years plus and all that jazz. They had that standard ad, and then they actually changed it to something a bit more like this, where it's talking about energy and passion, and we don't really mind what your skills are, but you really need to try you need to fit the type of culture that we're after. And they did a bit of an A/B testing thing. They popped it on Seek, and actually for the second ad, they said something like, "Don't even send us a CV, send us a letter, and tell us a little bit about yourself." And for A and B samples, he actually got the same. He actually got the same results back. The same people, same types of people, unbelievable, and not a difference in terms of women. And that was unexpected. He thought, oh, that's interesting. And he noticed that because the people just sent their CV. They actually didn't send a letter, which was part of the instructions. So no one actually read the position description. Okay, so that scrapped that. He was like, that's a terrible, terrible experiment. But what he did do then next was actually look at the mediums. So he actually took those two ads off Seek. And he actually popped them on the website and used social media as a channel. Huge difference. So he actually got more females that have applied to the to sample B than A. And this is really great story that he tells. He's still experimenting, and I've got Gabor over there from MYOB as well. He's really championing that within MYOB to keep experimenting. But there's definitely something in that language. A really good thing to, as I mentioned, with Lean In. I think good thing to note. When females read a job ad, they will only apply to it, and it's a general rule, but there is research, they'll only apply to it if they are 90% or above sure that they meet the criteria. Whereas men, can anyone guess what the percentage is for men?
60?
Yeah, 60. It's actually 60. That's and that comes back to that thing I was talking about, women with bossy syndrome and men going, yes, come on. And so we should all be a little bit more like that, hey? But on that, one tactic that I know a lot of organisations are doing now is interviewing women regardless. So as soon as the CV comes through, it's a straight out interview. And that's because they're self-selecting already. If they're at 90%, we know that, they've probably already got a good chance that they're actually feel confident about doing the role. The other thing on there is about tipping the scales is that you can actually go out to market and actually hire for women specifically. John usually takes this slide, and he talks about how he's been told he's worked for a lot of different organisations, so MOB, ThoughtWorks, Census, Guru, Jetstar, and in every single company they've said to him, no John, you'll get into so much trouble if you try and go out and hire women, it's just not on, don't do that, you don't want to get in the news. And it's actually happened. So has anyone seen Metro trains lately? There's so many female train drivers, and they actually specifically went out to hire for women. And so there is a way around it. There was a few BCAT type things in there, but yeah, it is possible. So I'm not going to go and do your research, but there is a way around it because Melbourne Metro trains, have done exactly this. There was 0% women train drivers. So they went, hang on, there's a whole addressable market there we need to be getting on board. So have a look at that and do your homework on it. Okay, so the key thing is, this is all great in terms of things you can be doing to perhaps try to attract and retain internally, but the key thing is, we walk out of this room and all the women in the room, their salary raised by 20-30%, because all of a sudden we're this rare, invaluable resource that enterprises and companies want. But we don't necessarily want that to happen. What we want is to get the pool bigger, and so that we can actually have more people come through into technology roles. And the main reason that I do this talk is because I work with a lot of people in technology, and a lot of them have kids, and they want their kids to actually have the same path into tech as they have. And obviously I want to work with more women in technology, that's a personal thing for me. But and speaking to Shane just earlier as well, I mean, how do you let your daughters, or even sons that matter, feel that it's okay to wanting to go into a STEM course, so science, technology, engineering, maths. And so So I've got a little bit off topic there, but yeah, the key thing is that people aren't, as you know, people aren't choosing tech as a career, they're perhaps not staying in tech as a career, and if that goes on, then we're going to be an outsourced industry, and that's not great, because we want our kids to be able to have the same experience that we've had. So what are some things we can be doing? So the first one is, let's see how much time I've got, sorry. 1:55, okay, because 15 minutes, okay. So the first thing is, talk us up. So on the far left here, this is what is currently online. So you look at that guy at the top, he's got his earphones in, he's hacking away at some stuff, there's two guys hanging around in the background. If you Google software engineer, that's what comes up currently. That's a bit scary. It's not as bad as the second one, computer engineer. That is on myfuture.edu.au. That is what they see when they
That's a 286.
I know. Yeah. 286. That's online right now. So
That's awful.
it is terrible. So it's inspiring, trying to motivate someone and going, just check it out on Google. This is engineering and technology is awesome. That's what they're fun. So my plea is we need to talk us up because it's quite scary. A quick anecdote. So I was talking to a little 10-year-old, so I've been doing some interviews through collecting some of this research, and I said to her, so what does IT mean to you? She said, well, I don't really know what IT stands for as a thing, but I do know what it means. I said, okay, tell me, what do you think, what is it to you? And she said, well, IT are the people that come to our classrooms to fix our iPads and computers when they're broken. And I was just like, oh my goodness. And that message is actually consistent with a lot of people. So when we sort of talk about women in IT and what are some of the groups like women, big ICT for women and so forth, or ICT industry. Go girl, go for it. So IT, it's not really connecting. So yes, we need to talk ourselves up. Who here at a barbecue when they get asked what they do for work, say, I work in IT. Be honest. Yeah. Holy cow. Okay, it's about 60-70% of people in the room. So you think about that. You think about people who are possibly listening to it, and they're like, oh, IT, okay, cool. I get what IT is. It's like that, right? And it's just, so we need to be better at that. Some people are doing this, which is fantastic. So Shane mentioned I look like an engineer. This started probably about a month ago. I can't remember what set it off, but basically Twitter's just been going bananas with this hashtag, and I think it's just fantastic to show that there are women are choosing engineers as a career path, and they're excelling in it, which is fantastic for everyone, not just for women. The second thing I want to do is support. This is a big slide full of all these different organisations who are doing great things out there for gender diversity. This actually started off with a band, like a white band in the middle, and then just literally over the last week I've added some more because it's growing and growing and growing. So what we need to be doing is a few things. So supporting these types of organisations, so sponsoring events, chucking some pizza towards Wales Girls, which is happening in late mid-October. Supporting things like there's a handful of things like there, Robo Girls, for example. Go and donate an hour of your time to Code Club. There are so many things out there we can be doing. Or get your organisation to sponsor for example, who are doing some great things. We're trying to encourage women to talk. There's a new one, and a quick shout out to Speakeasy over there on the right. So they're speaking this afternoon, and that's all about encouraging women to get up at tech conferences to talk. A quick example. At the AWS Summit last April, there was an entire day of tech talks, and there was not one woman on stage. And it's not about saying, it's all about, it should be half-hearted. It's not about that. It's actually showing that, encouraging women who are in the audience that, hey, that's great. She's rocking that stage. I can do it too, and we need that to happen more. Hopefully, get on a bigger stage, and then we have women, up-and-coming women, similar to what you mentioned about your 7, year 8 kids seeing up on stage, seeing Naomi Simpson up there and really doing seeing what she does out there in the startup community. Marita Chang, Judith Gami, a bunch of local ladies who are doing great things. We need more of that. And then, so lastly is encouraging role models. So if you are someone in the room who is a woman in tech and wants to start, getting on board the advocacy, just start somewhere. So one of my colleagues, Beth Scary, she went to see a talk. It was based on integration tests are a scam. And she walked out, she was like, I'm so motivated. She started doing all these little talks about packs. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of the open source in packs that started at REA. And she started talking about it, started building up all this momentum throughout the year, started going to meetups, ended up in Agile Australia, got on the big stage at Yao. And this is only over the space of about 9 or 10 months. And she's just doing great things. And for other women and for perhaps younger women to see her up on stage, I think it's just huge. So we really need to encourage these role models. The thing in the background there is a thing called Technically Speaking, and it's predominantly US based, but I've seen some local stuff lately. But basically it is a forum where women, in fact men, can go to as well, and it sort of says, hey guys, looking for a couple of women or a couple of people to talk about X, Y, and Z at this conference. Who do you know? Who wants to come along and do it? And it's trying to encourage accessibility for all people to be able to speak at different conferences. So wrap up, I've gone a little bit under, which is great. A quick wrap up. So there is an issue with gender diversity. We should all be trying to get on board, and it's not just women, it's males as well. I'm sure if you guys have heard of male champions of change, where executive level men are really getting on board and trying to drive this change through the industry. But yeah, about the why and what's happening, the types of things you can be doing, so internally, but more importantly, that community focus. So that's what I was hoping to chat about, and I hope you guys took something out of it. A few good reads on the right if you want to check it out. I don't know my details to stay in touch, but thank you. Any questions?
As a dad in a team, like this section over my team, there's another team before. What can I do to make women feel safe about getting up and speaking at work and things like that?
Do you mean just in meetings and those types of things?
I mean, just like how can I make them feel more confident?
Yeah. There's a few different areas. It's hard to say without being in there, like seeing the context and so forth. But there's probably little things you can start doing, like things like maybe little brown bags or something like that, and then you start introducing them and getting them to actually own a topic or something that presents back on something that they're passionate about. So that's what will probably help them at least get speaking. I work with a few individuals who, females who are the same, who don't really like talking, so we're trying to do exactly the same thing. Like, how about just present something small to a small group and get started on that. It's hard to say without being in that, because you don't want to seem condescending at the same time. Yeah, that's the key thing. You could get, you could actually get someone along to actually talk about some of this sort of stuff and get the conversation going. But yeah, maybe we'll chat offline to see a bit more detail about what it is, because I don't want to sort of say something and then people try it and then they go, well, that came across really badly, because it's really hard. It's a really hard balance between between it. And by the way, if there are any women in the room that have an answer to that, because, please.
It's a couple of small things just in language and in meetings, it all adds up to big things. So one of the things that women won't speak up in a meeting, because oftentimes they'll say something, maybe ABC, and then another guy goes, blah, 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 ABC, and everyone goes, yeah, Jeff, ABC. So just trying to pick up on the basics at first and say, hey Jeff, don't be stupid, that's Liz's idea. Just trying to help validate and give voice to women. Those tiny small acts really help with confidence and validation. So just little things add up to a lot.
Yeah. Another thing that's probably more an agile thing that we've introduced is getting people to put their thoughts down either on paper or something, and actually just put them up on the board. So you're kind of depersonalising it a bit, so it's actually not coming directly from that person. It's as a group, you're putting your individual thoughts up and then you sort of discuss them like a retro.
Yeah, we have silent meetings like that sometimes.
Yeah.
You're not actually allowed to speak and discuss where a card goes. Sometimes you're meant to group them together. It's sort of like everyone does it. You have a chat and you get convinced of other things. You do them silently. Yeah. So that's why.
Just also putting together what you mentioned before around like when women apply for jobs. Yeah, sure. So like when a woman will apply for a job, she'll apply based on the fact that she caters for 90% of meeting those requirements, whereas a man it may be 60%. And And so when you look at actually having someone stand up and talk in front of people, it's that mindset of, oh, he's a man, he's talking, he is very confident and exudes his confidence, even though that may not be the case, but it's that perception, and so it's that aspect of like being a lady, having that notion of I'm not going to stand up because I don't necessarily have that confidence, but I have that 90% factor. So it's about also creating that safe space for them to be able to fail, and also making it very clear that you fail as well, and creating and showing your failures, showing that you're actually really uncomfortable in this type of situation, or oh my gosh, when I did this, it made me feel like X, Y, Z, which allows them to feel, it normalizes it, because it's also one of those things whereby women are taught not to be vulnerable, not to be emotional, not to sort of embrace those aspects about ourselves. Yeah.
I think it's a patience thing as well. Like, so if somebody's not confident, be it male or female, they may not form what they're saying very well, and it's about maybe just not cutting them off, letting them continue their train of thought just for a little longer, because it will probably come. We tend to cut people off a lot, I think.
This is great. We can keep going.
A little bit unrelated, but I was just going to say about like re-entering into the workforce after being a parent. Like as much as recent as like 7-8 months ago, I had the experience of, previously I was a contractor, then in between pregnancy 1, pregnancy 2, I was contractor again. And when I came back and I was looking for work, I had recruitment companies talking to me like 13 months or 18 months out of the workforce was like some huge negative on my CV. And you sort of, I'm naturally a pretty confident person, but it does affect how you feel you can sell your skills. You've got to look at your career in its entirety and not just the last 12 months or the last 18 months. And I think like having a program that supports people in that kind of process is really good.
I think it's making people aware of the reason. If as an entrepreneurial sort of, charging up the career ladder sort of guy, a 12 to 18 month gap in my career, I might be able to sell it to a recruiter as a sabbatical or something like that. But it's a sell job to make that happen, because the assumption is that you're unemployed and unemployable for a period of time. Whereas for females re-entering the workplace after pregnancy, my wife, as an engineer, she had exactly that problem, and she didn't make it over the line because recruiters, so what have you been doing for the last 2 years in her case, and and it just wasn't a valid reason, having looking after my kids.
I actually work in recruitment, believe it or not. I don't know why I put my hand up. But like, a big thing about what we do is we go on a lot of clients' recommendations, what their requirements are, and a big thing that we do now, myself and colleague Jay, we're big champions of diversity, and we work with businesses to get to that 50-50 quota as much as possible. And it's really, I guess, being able to educate them and be able to say, look, what are you doing skills-wise, courses-wise, to say a front-end developer who doesn't have either experience, a female who's been in the workplace for 18 months, what are you doing to upskill them if they come into your business? So we're trying to push it back and compliance as much as possible, and I guess educating us to get to this 50% quota, we need to be doing more as a business.
We always try and recruit for capability and passion and desire over skills, because you can learn anything. As long as you have the right person.
So, I guess this is an interesting example, I guess, for academic conference, but that's not the reason why I hand up. What I wanted to bring to the discussion as well is, like, I mean, you mentioned LinkedIn quite a bit. Like, for me, reading the book, there were so many aha moments, and so many moments where I was like, hell no, I'm not going to play this game now that I know about it. Like, I think reading it, like, to come back to your point as well, like, a male friend of mine actually recommended reading it to me. So I guess if even guys read the book and understand the dynamics, but maybe even run around as a guy, if it helps me about that, it actually, I think that could be a really good point, because personally,
for me as a woman, I struggle with trying to advocate, females as you need numbers, because I don't want to be a number either. Like, I want it to be fair. Like, I wouldn't want to advocate any ratios or something. So I guess that would be a good point. And another idea could also be just have a chat with the women that are in your team and just ask why they might not necessarily feel comfortable in speaking up. Because as Louise said as well, there's guys as much as girls that don't feel comfortable speaking up. So it might not necessarily be a male-female thing. So I think it's useful to bring it up. And you can also bring it up in a mentor anyways. Say, hey, this is what I noticed. What do you guys think? It might be fine for
I think one problem also is we have a very clearly defined idea of what confidence looks like. And from people from different backgrounds, like I'm English, I find it very difficult to do what you're doing. I'd be sweating everywhere, it'd be grotesque. Because I don't like attention. So in the recruitment context, it's difficult to tell myself, which I see a lot of parallels with women in general in the workplace. So not having only one template for what confidence looks like would be very helpful.
Yeah. I mean, this is just quickly a small story to finish on. So I was talking to a friend who works for another organisation, and he said to me, I just came out of this meeting, it was really great, but there was this lady in there, and she just talked so much, and she was just really bossy and loud, and I was like, okay, and this is what you could be doing, you can actually pull people up. And I actually said to him, do you think, just imagine your mind, if that person just turned into a man for a second, would you actually felt the same? And he just went, holy shit, I've been completely just judging her based on being a woman and being bossy. And I think that's when we need to call people on it and go, no, don't call that person bossy or bitchy or whatever it is, because I think it's a good thing to do in organisations, to call it out.
in addition to that as well, I guess what Sharon's handbook says as well is that it's not just the guys doing it, like us girls, like we as bad and sometimes even worse in exactly doing those things, calling out responsibility. Well, obviously maybe not so much, doing other things like gender biases when it comes to applications or whatever it is. Like I think there's just being aware of it and when are we doing that, like consciously and calling it out, like calling ourselves out as well. I think that's a really good idea.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for the commentary. That was really, really valuable for everyone. So thank you.